Will Smith was grieving, and this time, it wasn't just about personal loss. It was about something bigger, something that made the whole world stop and feel. The sudden death of Ananda Lewis shocked everyone. A name many hadn't heard in years was suddenly everywhere, and the reason why left people stunned. You won't believe how quietly this all happened. Ananda, once the bold and fearless voice on MTV, had been fighting breast cancer for years in complete silence. And here's where it gets interesting. Not even her closest friends, including Will Smith, knew what she was going through. But here is the shocking part. It wasn't just the illness that caught people off guard. It was the way Will Smith responded. He broke down in tears. The man known for his charisma, strength, and confidence could barely speak in his tribute. Let me tell you, this wasn't just a celebrity reacting to another celebrity's passing. This was raw grief, years of friendship, and unspoken pain flooding out all at once. And what he revealed in that moment, it left everyone shaken. Ananda Lewis had lived most of her adult life in the spotlight. Her face was everywhere in the late 90s and early 2000s. She wasn't just another host. She was real, unfiltered, and fearless. But what makes this story different? It's what happened after the fame faded. Ananda didn't get canceled. She didn't lose relevance. She chose to leave. At the height of her career, she stepped away, and that decision confused a lot of people. Now, after her passing, that choice makes more sense, painfully so. She had quietly started a new life, away from the lights and noise. She focused on being a mother, an activist, and, without telling most people, a patient. She was living with stage 3 breast cancer and kept it a secret for almost 2 years. Why? That question has no simple answer. Some say she didn't want pity. Others believe she didn't want to be treated differently. But destiny took an unexpected turn, and when she finally shared her diagnosis in 2020, it was already late. The disease had spread. She went public only because she wanted to warn other women, especially Black women, to get screened early. She spoke through tears and said, "I have a son. I need to be here for him." And just like that, the fearless host became a mother fighting for time. The craziest part, even after going public, Ananda still kept much of her pain private. She didn't post constant updates. She didn't ask for attention. She used her platform to push awareness, not sympathy. Meanwhile, friends and fans were left guessing about her condition, and then, suddenly, she was gone. Just like that. No warnings, no long goodbyes, a quiet farewell, and then silence. But this is where it gets emotional and confusing. Will Smith's tribute came before her family even released a formal statement. People started asking questions. Why did Will speak up so early? Why was there no immediate cause of death announced? Some reports said she died at home. Others claimed she passed in a private care facility. The timeline didn't add up. And that's when conspiracy theories started flooding the internet. Was someone trying to hide something? Or was it simply about protecting her last wishes? No one knows for sure, but one thing is clear. Will Smith was not just mourning a friend. He was mourning someone who had been like family. Their bond wasn't just about celebrity life. They had shared deep conversations, life experiences, and a quiet understanding of what it meant to walk away from fame. And when Will finally opened up about their final conversation, it was something no one expected to hear. For years, people had been wondering where Ananda Lewis had gone. She had disappeared so quietly that many assumed she simply stepped back to live a private life. Some thought she had retired to focus on her family. Others believed she was working behind the scenes. But the truth was much heavier than anyone guessed. Ananda had been fighting for her life, and she had chosen to fight in silence. Back in 2020, she finally opened up in a heartfelt video where she revealed she had been living with stage 3 breast cancer for nearly 2 years. She looked straight into the camera and said, "I'm sharing this now because I have a son and I want to live, but also because too many women wait too long. Her voice cracked. Her eyes were tired but strong. That one video sparked something bigger. It wasn't just about her illness. It became a warning, a wake-up call, especially for Black women who are often diagnosed too late and treated too little. But here's the part that no one saw coming. Even after she shared her truth, she still kept the hardest parts to herself. She never talked about the pain, the treatments, or the late-night fears. She kept smiling for the public, kept pushing her message, but behind closed doors, she was getting weaker. Only a few people knew how bad it really was. And Will Smith, he wasn't one of them. Not until the very end. You won't believe this, but the moment that changed everything came just 2 weeks before she passed. Ananda called Jada Pinkett Smith, not to say goodbye, but to give instructions. She said, "Don't let them tell my story wrong." That single sentence hit like a punch. It made Jada realize how much Ananda had been holding in, and it showed just how much control she still wanted over her own story, even when her time was running out. But here is where it gets even more emotional. After that call, Jada broke down. In a video she posted just hours after Ananda's passing, she looked wrecked. Red eyes, trembling voice. She said, "Ananda wasn't just a friend. She was my mirror. She reminded me it's okay to walk away, to choose peace over praise." And then she added something that caught everyone off guard. She said, "Will is taking it the hardest." No one expected that. Not from Will, the man who had faced the world's judgment, the ups and downs of fame, and still managed to smile. But the truth was, behind that smile, Will was breaking. In a quiet hospital room, away from the cameras and noise, Will Smith sat beside Ananda in her final hours. According to those close to the family, he didn't say much at first. He just held her hand. He looked at her, and then he whispered something that made her smile through the pain. "You were always the realest of us," he said. "You walked away when they needed you the most, and somehow that's when you were the strongest." Tears rolled down her face, and when he kissed her forehead and stood up to leave, she stopped him with her last bit of strength. She said, "Don't carry this. Let me go with peace." That one line shattered him. Will collapsed into Jada's arms, sobbing like a child. This wasn't just a goodbye. This was years of love, friendship, and unspoken understanding crashing down all at once. And yet, what happened next shocked even the closest people around him. Because instead of disappearing into grief, Will walked out of that hospital and made a phone call that would change everything. He didn't just want to mourn Ananda. He wanted to honor her. He called his longtime production partner and said, "We need to do a project about her. Real, raw, no gloss. The world needs to know who she really was." Will's decision to tell Ananda's story wasn't just an emotional reaction, it became his mission. Hours after leaving the hospital, still broken from her final words, he locked himself away from the public eye and started making calls, and not the kind of calls that celebrities make for PR. These were raw, urgent conversations. He told his team, "This isn't just a tribute, this is her truth. We owe it to her to get it right." And just like that, a quiet promise turned into a full-scale project. But here's the shocking part. As the team began preparing to gather details for the documentary, something unexpected happened. While going through Ananda's things, her family found a small sealed envelope tucked away in a jewelry box. On the front, in her handwriting, it said, "For Will, when it's time." Inside was a single flash drive. Will took it home. According to someone close to him, he waited a few hours before watching it. He sat alone in a dark room, hit play, and for the next 13 minutes, everything stopped. The video began with Ananda sitting in her sunroom, wrapped in a soft scarf, her voice calm but clear. She looked straight into the camera and said, "If you're seeing this, then I'm already gone. But don't be sad. I lived, I really lived, and now I want my life to speak. Let me tell you What followed was not just a goodbye, it was a confession. It was her soul on camera. She spoke about Will, how he had been there not just during the good times, but in the silent, painful moments the public never saw. She said, "You always told me my voice mattered, even when I didn't want to speak." And then she dropped the craziest part. Ananda had been secretly recording her journey for over 5 years. No crew, no directors, just her phone, and the raw truth. She documented everything: the good days, the unbearable nights, the moments she felt strong, and the ones where she felt like giving up. She never intended to show the world until now. And she left all of it to Will. If you think someone needs this, if you think it matters, then use it, she said. This is how her legacy changed form. Will didn't hesitate. He called his producers again and said, "This is the heart of it. Her voice, her truth. We're not making a tribute, we're letting her speak." And just as they started working on shaping the story, more pieces began falling into place. Jada came forward with voice notes Ananda had sent her, personal messages, late night thoughts, even a few arguments they had about whether Ananda should go public earlier. Each clip painted a fuller picture of who she really was: fierce, stubborn, kind, scared, and still hopeful. But what makes this story different? It's not just about illness or celebrity. It's about a woman who had every reason to chase fame and chose purpose instead. She walked away from red carpets when her career was still rising. She chose motherhood over spotlight. She chose privacy over pity. And in the end, she chose truth over comfort. And here's where it gets interesting. Just as news of the upcoming project started leaking to the media, fans began digging into the timeline of Ananda's death. And some things didn't add up. Her death was announced days after it actually happened. Some outlets said she died at home. Others said in a private care facility. The cause of death was left undisclosed for a full 48 hours. This delay led to a flood of questions. Was her family trying to protect her final days? Or was something deeper going on? Conspiracy theories started swirling. People began asking, did she refuse treatment? Was there tension among those closest to her? Nothing was confirmed, but the silence surrounding her passing left enough gaps to make people wonder. But the truth, according to Jada and Will's inner circle, was simple. Ananda didn't want the world to watch her die. She wanted the world to hear her after she was gone. In the days after Ananda's death, while Hollywood started to react and tributes poured in, something bigger began happening. Will Smith, who had once stood at red carpets and award shows with confidence and charm, now stood in front of cameras not as a superstar, but as a man changed forever. He wasn't promoting a movie, he was promoting a mission. He made a public statement, short but powerful. She asked me not to let them tell her story wrong, so I won't. That sentence, just like her final message, sparked something. Suddenly, celebrities, health advocates, and fans weren't just sharing condolences, they were sharing mammogram results, appointment dates, and health tips. A movement had begun. Quietly, Ananda had lit a fire that even death couldn't put out. But here's the part no one expected. As Will and Ananda's family continued working on the documentary, they discovered something hidden among her belongings. Handwritten journals, letters, and even voice recordings she made for her son. Dozens of them. Some dated all the way back to when she first found out about her diagnosis. She had left everything behind in layers. Like she knew someone would one day need to put the pieces together. And here comes the craziest part. In one of her final journal entries, she wrote something that shook Will to his core. It said, "Don't just tell them how I died. Tell them how I lived, how I laughed, how I fought, how I disappeared and still felt whole. Tell them I didn't lose. I left on my terms." That changed everything. The documentary, originally planned as a tribute, shifted into something deeper. It wasn't just about breast cancer or a fallen media star. It became a guide on how to live truthfully, even when the world expects you to fake it. How to walk away from fame, not in weakness, but in power. How to face death without fear. Ananda's story became a mirror for millions, but the most emotional twist of all came during the editing process. Remember that flash drive? Well, near the end of the video Ananda left for Will, she turned serious, almost whispering, and said something directly to the camera. Tell my son I loved him with everything I had. And then she looked straight into the lens, holding back tears, and added, to the little black girls who watched me and thought, maybe I can do that too. Yes, you can. You still can. That was the moment that completely broke Will. Insiders say he paused editing for 3 days after that. He couldn't speak, couldn't sleep. When he finally returned to the studio, he said, she didn't just leave a story, she left instructions, a map, a legacy. And here's where it gets emotional again. The documentary, now officially titled Let Her Voice Speak, is in final stages. But more than that, it's already changing lives. Screenings are being planned in schools, hospitals, and community centers. A foundation is being created in Ananda's name to support health education for women of color. And Will, he's not just the producer, he's the protector of her truth. So if you've made it to the end of this story, remember this. You didn't just hear about a death, you witnessed the rise of a legacy. Ananda Lewis didn't fade away, she lit a path. And like she asked, her story is being told truthfully, powerfully, and exactly the way she wanted. The realest of them all, even in goodbye.